All right. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Hailey Nelson. Thank you for joining me for today's Safe Kids Central California Lunch and Learn. For those of you who haven't met me yet, I am a pediatrician and I'm a mom of three. And I'm also Dr. California. I'm like, let me get the whole stash. Dr. California America 2021. Now, some people might be wondering, doctor doing a pageant, like why is that? And the reason being is that this gives me a platform to be able to speak to a greater audience. So I love what we do as pediatricians, and our whole thing is about keeping kids healthy and keeping kids safe. And then I can have a conversation in an exam room with one patient, or I can join Facebook Live, invite one of my best friends who you're going to meet in just a second, and talk to more of you and be able to share these messages. And so that's what I'm doing here. We're stepping outside the exam room, taking an adventure into social media, but really doing that so that we can help keep more kids healthy and safe. So with that, I'd love to introduce you to, like I said, one of my dear friends, Dr. Riney, and she's actually joining us from Cincinnati. So hi, Dr. Riney. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real, true pleasure.
Awesome. Now, Dr. Riney, can you tell us a little bit about your job and what you do at your hospital?
Absolutely. So I am a pediatric emergency medicine physician. So I primarily work in the pediatric emergency department at Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center. So I did my residency in pediatrics and then did a fellowship in pediatric emergency medicine. So I care for children who are ill or injured on a daily basis. And I also am a mom of three. So this topic is really important to me.
Yeah. Okay. So, and when we were making plans and I reached out and I said, hey, I want to have you on my show. Like, I miss you. And so I wanted to be able to see you, but also to be able to share part of your world. And so the emergency room, you see kids who get hurt, who we can, that there's injuries that are preventable. And so you said, let's talk about pedestrian safety. Why is that? Like, what are you seeing?
Yeah, so pedestrian safety is really, really important to me because we see so many unintentional injuries every day from kids that occur around vehicles. And in the United States, more than 40 kids every day are hit by cars, which is really an astonishing number. And I hope that some of the tips that we give you guys today will really help encourage you to want to be out and about and explore your environment with your children, but also know that we're here and we want to help you to learn to keep your kids safe while you are walking near vehicles.
Okay, 40 kids a day, that is a big number. And so in kind of breaking down the different categories for pedestrian safety. So what's the first one that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so I would love to talk a little bit about how to teach kids to walk safely around vehicles. So we know as soon as kids become mobile, they want to be out and about, they want to move, they want to explore their environment. But there is a way to do that kids can be safe. So the first tip that I want to give parents and caregivers out there is that whenever kids are crossing the road, to make sure that they're looking left, looking right, and then looking left again before they cross the road. And then as they're crossing the road, just to make sure that they're constantly being aware of their surroundings and continuing to walk safely.
Okay, so we got to use our eyes, but that's interesting. Let's repeat that again. So we often say, oh, did you look both ways before you cross the road? But really, you have to look three times. So we want everyone to look left, look right, look left again before you cross. And so making sure that you're scanning and then paying attention while you're walking too. So just looking and then starting walking and not paying attention is not enough. So you really kind of eyes up while you're crossing. Okay, what else do you want them to know?
So the other thing that's really important is to make sure when they're crossing the road, they're doing it at a traffic light and using traffic signals, telling them when they can cross, or at a crosswalk. We see a lot of injuries occur whenever kids are crossing the road in between blocks or darting out in front of cars, and they're not at an area where drivers are expecting pedestrians to cross.
Yeah, and so that makes sense too. For if you're driving, you expect that there might be someone on the crosswalk, but you're not going to expect someone kind of part of the way through to be kind of jumping out or running across. So although it might feel like when you're on foot that it's more direct to cross in the middle or do something else, that waiting until you get to a designated place so that the vehicles are aware that you might be there. Okay, good. And then let's see. Oh, and then what about when it's dark out? What do you want to tell families for? So if your kid is walking at night, what are some of
Yeah,
those
so if
tips
your
too?
kid is walking at night, it's really, really important to make sure that they're dressed appropriately so that drivers can see them. So wearing very, very light colored clothing or even reflective gear is going to be super important because drivers might not see a child who's dressed in clothing that is super dark.
Yeah. So you kind of blend in. So just like we talk about, with our bikes, having the reflectors and being mindful of that at night, the same thing applies to walking. And you might not be thinking about planning your outfit. So if you are going to be out and it's late and dark, help the cars be able to see you so that then you can stay safe. Okay. So we're going to hold our children's hands. We're going to look both ways, cross at the designated things, and then be mindful of our clothing. Okay. Anything else under that category for walking safely?
Yeah, so I think one of the big ones that parents don't realize is that kids under the age of 10 years developmentally really can't judge the speed or the distance of oncoming cars. So I think it's really important to know that if your child is under the age of 10, they should be crossing the road with an adult because it takes a while developmentally to really truly understand how fast a car is going and the distance between them and the car to be able to walk across the road safely. So please, if your child is under the age of 10, make sure that you're holding their hand or walking with them across the road.
Okay. Yeah. And 10, I mean, as a parent, like I have a 9-year-old, I'm like, oh, I still should be walking with you. Like you're not 10 yet, but really understanding that they aren't able to grasp it again, like you said, that speed. But I think some of it again, from the mom factor of just wanting our children to be able to do things. I'm like, you should be able to put on your own shoes and do some chores. And like, I want you to be able to cross the street, but really it's for your own safety that I'm still gonna helicopter a little bit and be there with you so that we make it safely across. So good safety
Absolutely.
tips there. All right. And then what about distraction? That was kind of another category too. So we got to make sure we're not distracted when we're out there. What tips do you have for that?
Absolutely. So I think a lot of people think about distraction as when you're driving, which is true. A lot of times drivers nowadays are very distracted by devices and cell phones and things going on inside of the car. But it's also really important as a pedestrian not to be distracted. Cell phones distract us. Wearing headphones also is a big distraction because you're not really aware of the sounds and the noises that are going around outside of your environment. So what I usually tell my children is to have their heads up and always be aware of their surroundings. They're not old enough yet to have cell phones, but we see commonly with teenagers or kids who are just, recently getting a cell phone, they are so distracted walking and looking at their phone or making calls. So it's really important to have your heads up and your phones down or your headphones off whenever you're walking to make sure that you're not distracted and that you are just really aware of your surroundings and your environment.
Yeah, so that's such a good reminder. And I think it's just easy because we, live on our phones and that we're constantly kind of plugged in there. But that when it comes to those crosswalks, so maybe if you do want to listen to a podcast and get a walk in, that's a great time to find a nature trail or somewhere where then you're not going to be going through intersections, because that's the piece of this, like or like if I'm walking the dog and wanting to catch up with someone, can I do a route that then keeps me on a sidewalk on that same side so that I then can enjoy catching up with someone while I'm multitasking. But reality is we're not really good at multitasking, and so that's when it comes to safety where multitasking creates a danger. And so being very mindful of that. That's a good reminder.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else for kind of the distraction piece that you wanted to make sure we tell people?
Um, I think one good tip is that if you need to use your cell phone, so if you need to text someone or take a phone call, just to let your kids know it's okay to find a safe place to sit and do that before they continue on their path or their walk to school or wherever they might be going. And then just be on the lookout for other pedestrians who might be distracted and they might be in harm's way, just to let them know, to be able to speak up and make sure that they're safe as well.
Well, that's a good tip too. I know I going back to like walking the dog too. I'm kind of paying attention to like, is someone else with a dog coming towards us? And so that's something where, that that just teaching our kids how to look out too, because you don't know if that dog's going to be friendly or how your dog's going to respond or some of those other factors, but those are learning lessons for that, just increase awareness, and that's how we can get from point A to point B safely.
Absolutely.
All right, and then our kind of final category that we had talked about is letting our actions speak as loudly as our words. So what do you want to tell our parents out there about that part of it?
Yes, this is the part that I really love, because kids are constantly looking to us
Mhm.
to set an example for them and to mirror our behaviors. So I think as both a pedestrian and a driver, it's really important to show your kids how you can be totally in the moment and not distracted by other things. So making sure when you're driving that your cell phone is down, other devices are down, you're not turning around, checking on kids, talking to kids, handing them snacks, which can be difficult sometimes to ignore, but letting them know that you're doing this for their safety, because your most important job right now is to drive them and be safe on the road and not be distracted.
That's great. And really being mindful when we're parenting, right? Like it's easy to get distracted, and there's things that creep in. And so really being intentional with our actions with our kids. And then I love that of just having that reminder that our kids are watching us. Like they see
Yes.
me when I'm checking my phone to see what else has been posted to Safe Kids, which you are welcome to say hi to me on there. But at the same time, like I need to have my limits and I need to put that down, and having those boundaries. And so showing them those good behaviors. So they're going to model us. And and going back to the beginning of this for the pedestrian safety part, where we talked about looking left and right and left again, we're teaching our kids, but you better do that when you're walking with your kids, so that they see you do it, because that's how they're going to learn, because they want to be like you. And so you're their best teacher. So being a good role model is so important.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other kind of closing tips as we wrap up today about pedestrian safety?
Yeah, so I think the last thing is just to be especially alert and driving slow whenever you're in residential neighborhood areas, to know that there might be kids who are crossing the road on kind of slower streets in their housing areas, to make sure that you're always on the lookout for kiddos, especially if they might seem distracted. So, yeah.
All right. Yeah. Kids are home for the summer. They might be out playing, wanting to go visit their friends down the street. So, yep, when you're driving through a neighborhood, just being a little bit more on alert for parents behind the wheel. So,
Yeah.
excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Dr. Riney. I just love getting to see you, and so proud of all the things that you're doing at Cincinnati Children's. And it's just awesome. So keep up the good work there and advocating for keeping our children healthy and safe. For those of you who are joining in, please like and follow us on Facebook. That's how you're going to stay up to date with all the information from Safe Kids Central California. We're going to be live next week, and it'll be our pre-4th of July episode. So stay tuned. We're going to be having a lot of fun learning things from Cal Fire, but it is always a pleasure to join you. And if you have any questions, you can always send those in to us, but we look forward to seeing you next week. Everyone stay safe and be well.
Thank you.